So, watching women's college basketball, it's very clear just how important Lisa Bluder has been to the sport of basketball, especially women's basketball and in basketball in general. Because Caitlin Clark right now, obviously, she's the star of basketball, men's or women's. If you are, like, debate a wall. She is the star of basketball. And the thing is, when it comes to Caitlin Clark, is that the reason why she blew up is because of Iowa. She was incredible as a freshman. And if you guys look back, there are tweets from 2021 of like college basketball being like, why is Caitlin Clark being ignored? Why is everyone just focused on Paige Beckers? Caitlin Clark has been as good. Caitlin Clark should be better. And when Caitlin Clark didn't get nominated for Player of the Year, there was so much uproar. They gave her co-freshman of the year, even though Paige won Player of the Year outright, but didn't win Freshman of the Year outright, which is mad. But you've got then Caitlin Clark obviously winning like 2023 and 2024 Player of the Years. Was in with a shout of winning it in 2022. And it was just the way she played the game. Like, I, again, remember in 2021 being, back in my 2K days, I'd be streaming and it's basketball. There's always, like, talk. Someone always says something negative about the WNBA. It is what it is. It's never going to stop happening. But I remember just showing them clips of Caitlin Clark and people would say something like, oh, I could average 50. And I'm like, I mean, look at this, and it's like, you can't do this. Showing them videos of Caitlin Clark back in 2021. The difference is that obviously the better they got, the more fans she got, and she became arguably one of the biggest stars in sports. And it's so important that Lisa Bluder was Caitlin Clark's coach, because if Caitlin Clark could have gone somewhere else, and we don't know about Caitlin Clark. So this is Lisa Bluder talking about Caitlin Clark.
She has, raised the excitement of our sport. There's no doubt. Just because she does things in a different way than anybody else can do. Plus, she has all the intangibles. She's a great student. She's a great role model. She does everything. She loves being that role model. I really think that, when she came in as a freshman and she said, we're going to the Final Four, and a lot of people laughed at her and maybe even laughed at her for coming to Iowa, quite honestly. But she believed, we believed, and she got everybody else in that locker room to believe. And that is not an easy thing to do. So her just belief in everybody around her, it just grew and grew. And you could say the same thing about this year, quite honestly. So I don't know if I answered your question completely, Nancy, but I think that she has done amazing things to grow our game and do it.
And that's the thing. She is almost unique. Everything you learn about coaching when you have to coach Caitlin Clark, you have to throw it out the window. There is another player that is almost Caitlin Clark level Flair in college basketball. And we're seeing the opposite happen. We're seeing a coach that's trying to mold said player into a system and take away everything she does good. There is a player, we talk about Hidalgo, we talk about Juju Watkins. If any of these players are going to overtake Caitlin Clark based on just their ability to just be wow, it is Malaysia Fulwiley. Malaysia Fulwiley is one of the most explosive, dynamic players ever. And she plays the game with a kind of freedom that very few people play with. Like, there are not that many people that will pull off some of the stuff that, like, Malaysia Fulwiley will do. Sorry, clicked trying to get some highlights there. That Malaysia Fulwiley will do on the floor. And her coach right now is more focused on reeling in her talent rather than letting her make a few mistakes, but also letting her control and take over games. Her team just lost a game. She played 3 minutes yesterday. South Carolina lost. But if you look at how she plays, this is her against Clemson. Driving in. Like, she did she's out here pulling out the rondo in college games. Bang. Like, there's this type of flair that, again, players don't play with in the women's game. Oh, sorry, this is Clemson last year. But, like, she gets on the inside. Behind the back, between the legs, behind the back, crossover, drives in behind the back. What is that? Like, that is one of, in the women's game. In the men's game, that's a highlight play. Malaysia Fulwiley is a freaking human highlight film. She is one of the best players in the nation, and her coach has basically said, you make one mistake, you're gone. She's on the shortest leash imaginable because, the coach just wants to fix her. You don't need to fix a player like Manaja Fulwiley. You don't need to fix a Caitlin Clark. I'm telling you, if Dawn Staley coached Caitlin Clark, she would be sitting on the end of the bench. If Dawn Staley was a WNBA coach, and let's just say she got the Fever job last year, Caitlin Clark came in, Caitlin Clark would have rode the bench for Erica Wheeler. Like Manaja Fulwiley, Dawn Staley's not going to change. And by the way, Dawn Staley is a good coach. She is a good coach, but certain coaches suit certain players, and certain coaches are important for certain players. Christy Sides was not the right coach for Caitlin Clark. And not only that, she was a disastrous coach. If Christy Sides had it her way, Caitlin Clark would probably be coming off the bench for Erica Wheeler. If she had it her way, and she had full control over that team, Caitlin Clark would be coming off the bench for Erica Wheeler, or Caitlin Clark would be playing as a spot-up small forward, playing in the Katie Lou Samuelson role. That was what Chrissy Sides wanted to do. Chrissy Sides didn't even say she was a point guard. She was one of the best point guards in the league. And the funny thing is about Fulwiley, it's like, Fulwiley doesn't play the same position as Raven Johnson, who's averaging 3 points per game. No, Raven Johnson does exactly what... she's like old school. She's not going to try to do anything. She's not going to really shoot the ball that many times per game. She's not going to mess up. And that's what Dawn Staley and all the old WNBA guard want their point guards to do. They want their point guard to be, Mark Jackson. But what they don't want is they don't want the Ja Morant. They don't want a Kyrie. They don't want, kind of other, combo guard things. They don't want combo guards. They don't want combo guards with Flair. That's what Caitlin Clark realistically is. She is Tyrese Halliburton mixed with Magic Johnson. Mixed with Steph Curry range. That's realistically what Clark is. And Fulwiley, as far as just, wow. That's the difference between Caitlin. When people are like, we had other players like Caitlin, what about Sabrina and stuff? Sabrina was good. Sabrina did some good things. Sabrina can shoot from almost as far. Caitlin Clark, 5 times a game you watch Caitlin Clark play and you say, wow. 5 times a game you watch Manaja Fulwiley play and you say, wow. For those 5 times, you will take the 2 times they make a ridiculously dumb play or they try something they shouldn't. The difference is that when you had Lisa Bluder, she built a team around her. And in fact, that team beat arguably the best South Carolina team that Dawn Staley ever had. Being built around that Flair player who's going to make mistakes, but going to do so much more good than bad. Dawn Staley has a player like that. She is a player that might actually be the best of Juju Hidalgo and Fulwiley. But she's sitting her on the bench as some sort of, we need to teach you to be more careful. That's not going to do anything. All that's going to do is teach her, is ingrain in her head the freedom I play with, the things that I can do that nobody else can do. Because sometimes I'll turn the ball over doing that. That's bad. When the reality is, it's the opposite. You've got a coach in Dawn Staley and I'm not saying, again, she's a bad coach. I'm not saying she's bad. She's winning is the most important thing for her. If I was her, I would transfer it to a TCU type team. I would transfer it to a team that's going to let her be her. And I think she's going to win 2. She could win 2 National Player of the Years. Back to back. Imagine you put her in a TCU type system with a center like a Sedona Prince. Imagine if she went to... I'm trying to think where she could go next year. If you give her maybe not UCLA. If you gave her a center like Lauren Betts and some freedom, she'd be unbelievable. But she is basically being told, go sit on the bench. And people are like, it's going to help her. In 4 years' time, she's going to be better than them all. No, she's not. In 4 years' time, she's no longer going to be Manaja Fulwiley. And that's the reality of it. Is that Gina Auriemma, a Dawn Staley, would have stopped Caitlin Clark being Caitlin Clark. And Caitlin Clark would have been a bang average, 9th pick in the draft, small forward, sniper shooter, who couldn't really play, who wasn't a very good defender, and she would have turned the ball over less, but she would have rode the bench and been in and out of the league. A coach letting Caitlin Clark be Caitlin Clark is the reason why women's basketball is where it is the reason why she's the face of basketball. And it shows how important a coach can be in a situation when we have got the most exciting player since Caitlin Clark sitting on the bench because she turns the ball over once in a game. She plays 3 minutes in a game, they lose by 20. She turns it over once, and she's sitting on the bench. When she has an unbelievable game, her coach is like, well, yeah, we still need to reel her in a bit. And it's like, no, you don't. Let Mylesia Full-Wiley be Mylesia Full-Wiley, and she's one of the 5 best players in the nation. Except right now, she's what? 9th man on a South Carolina team that's not going to win the national championship. If I was her, I'd transfer. For her own sake. Dawn Staley is a good coach. She's going to win. She is genuinely a very good coach. She is a terrible coach for guards with flair. You need certain types of coaches for certain types of players. And especially, you do not need a system coach when you have a player like a Full-Wiley, when you have a player like Caitlin Clark, because they are the system. You don't make them system players. You build a system around players like that. And that's the problem with Staley as a coach for Full-Wiley. And Full-Wiley is that good that you can build a system around her and win.